Do you remember when Dennis Rodman dyed his hair neon for the first time? Well, that was 1993, but honestly, that wasn't even the strangest thing to hit TV that year. Today, we're counting down 10 forgotten TV flops from 1993 that crashed harder than a dial-up modem on AOL free trial day. Be sure to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow, and stick around for number 2 because it's the kind of show that had all the star power, think De Niro level star power, but still made network execs wish they could hit undo. Alright, let's get into TV's biggest messes from 1993 with number 10, The Chevy Chase Show, Fox. Kicking off our list is a show that's become the gold standard for late-night disasters. After Johnny Carson retired in May of 1992, triggering the infamous late-night wars, every network scrambled to fill the void. NBC picked Leno over Letterman, CBS swooped in and gave Letterman a $14 million contract, and Fox executives thought, hey, why not Chevy Chase? Fox went all in on this catastrophe, dropping a cool mill to renovate the Aquarius Theater in Hollywood, which they renamed the Chevy Chase Theater for the show's run, a level of confidence that aged like milk in a sauna. The show's awkward monologues, forced jokes, and cringe-inducing celebrity interviews made even his most loyal fans squirm. Chevy's best moments felt like rough drafts of SNL Weekend Update jokes, and his worst, well, they made audiences nostalgic for the emergency test pattern. Despite booking some big-name guests such as Robert De Niro, Jason Priestley, Burt Reynolds, and Goldie Hawn, who often seemed uncomfortable with Chase's antics, the show barely lasted 6 weeks before Fox pulled the plug. In 2002, TV Guide ranked the show number 16 on its TV Guide's 50 Worst TV Shows of All Time list. Ouch. As for the Chevy Chase Theater, well, within 48 hours of the final show, workmen had already dismantled and painted over the sign, and it was quickly renamed again and eventually closed in 2017. Number 9, South of Sunset, CBS. Next up, we've got a show that flamed out so fast it might as well have been called One and Done. South of Sunset hit the airwaves on October 27, 1993, and was canceled after exactly 1 episode. Yeah, one. Uno. Un. That's it. Anyway, the show starred Eagles guitarist Glenn Frey. Yes, this Glenn Frey.
Oh, you need a friend, someone you can talk to.
He played Cody McMahon, a former chief of security for a Hollywood studio who starts his own detective agency in Los Angeles. Talk about a career shift. CBS promoted this show during the 1993 World Series so heavily that viewers were humming the theme song before the premiere. Remember this? CBS reportedly spent an estimated $1.5 million on promotion alone, which works out to, let me see, $1.5 million times carry the 1, move over the 7, there's a decimal point there, plus Z. About $1.5 million per episode aired. Not exactly a great return on investment. Unfortunately, the show's premiere coincided with massive wildfires in Southern California that preempted the broadcast in Los Angeles. When the ratings came in, South of Sunset had scored a pitiful 6.1 rating, about half of what CBS expected, leading to immediate cancellation. Clearly, the network had no faith in this show whatsoever. The show also featured Maria Patillo, who would later go on to face an even bigger disaster as the female lead in the 1998 Godzilla movie. At least in that case, she got to film for more than 1 day though. As for Glenn Frey, he wasn't too devastated by the show's failure. He was back on tour with the Eagles just 2 weeks later. Turns out, playing the sold-out stadiums is a pretty good fallback plan. Number 8, Space Rangers, CBS. While Ridley Scott's cinematic sci-fi masterpieces like Alien and Blade Runner set high standards, CBS ventured into the genre with Space Rangers, a series set in the 22nd century that premiered on January 6, 1993. Imagine Star Trek if the Enterprise was assembled from a kit bought at Radio Shack, RIP to Radio Shack. This show had a surprisingly solid cast, including Academy Award winner Linda Hunt as Commander Chenault, years before she joined NCIS Los Angeles, and Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who would go on to demand "Your soul is mine" as Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat.
Your soul is mine.
The show followed a ragtag team of space cops patrolling the outer edges of the galaxy. The producers had to cobble together a universe from recycled props with a medical bay that looked suspiciously like a kitchen with Christmas lights taped to it. In other words, they had a budget that probably couldn't cover Captain Picard's Earl Grey tea habit.
Tea Earl Grey, hot.
Despite its ambitious world building, Space Rangers lasted just 6 episodes before CBS hit the self-destruct button. Some sources suggest that the episodes were aired out of order, a programming strategy later seen with Fox's Firefly. Turns out, even in space, no one can hear you get cancelled. Number 7, Big Wave Daves, CBS. Remember those Life Sucks Let's Go to the Beach shows that were everywhere in the 90s? Well, Big Wave Daves tried to capture that vibe during a 6-episode summer run starting August 9, 1993. The show followed 3 friends at a crossroads. Marshall, played by Adam Arkin, fresh off Northern Exposure, who just lost his job. Dave, played by David Morse, best known for St. Elsewhere, going through a divorce, and Richie, played by Patrick Breen, known for roles in Men in Black and Galaxy Quest as, well, just Richie. They hatch a plan to open up a surf shop in Hawaii called, yeah, well, you guessed it, it's Big Wave Dave's. Because nothing says authentic surf shop like 3 guys who think SPF 4 counts as sun protection. After convincing Marshall's skeptical wife Karen, played by Jane Kasmerick, long before Malcolm in the Middle, to join them, they all relocate to Oahu. Naturally, Dave immediately wipes out while surfing, Richie has an identity crisis, and they meet a cranky local who calls himself Jack Lord after the Hawaii Five-0 star. This was played by none other than Kurtwood Smith years before he perfected the art of calling people dumbass as Red Foreman on That 70s Show. When Hawaii's famous rain puts a damper on their dream, the guys nearly pack it in until Karen reveals she's pregnant, ensuring that they're all stuck in paradise while chaos ensues. Cue the laugh track. Unfortunately, this beach bum sitcom wiped out after just 6 episodes. Turns out audiences weren't exactly clamoring for a show about middle-aged guys living out their midlife crisis in board shorts. Number 6, Key West, Fox. Fox took a gamble on Key West. It's a quirky dramedy that premiered on January 13, 1993, about Seamus O'Neill, a New Jersey factory worker who wins the lottery and heads to the Florida Keys to become a writer, hoping to follow in the footsteps of his idol, Ernest Hemingway. The show starred Fisher Stevens as the wannabe writer, with a supporting cast that included Denise Crosby, best known as Tasha Yar on Star Trek The Next Generation, and Jennifer Tilly, the bride of Chucky, as the town's high-class lady of the evening, because every quirky town needs one, apparently. Hemingway's presence looms large, inspiring Seamus's quest to become a writer, though the famed author's ghost doesn't make literal appearances. If Hemingway had given Seamus advice, it probably would have been, "For whom the cancellation bell tolls, it tolls for thee." Despite shooting on location in the actual Key West, Fox executives were reportedly baffled by the show's unique blend of comedy, drama, and magical realism, a mix that proved a little too offbeat for mainstream audiences in the highly competitive early 90s television landscape. While the show developed a dedicated cult following that appreciated its surreal elements and quirky characters, the broader audience just wasn't there. Despite its picturesque setting, Key West quietly disappeared after 13 episodes. Much like its main character's writing ambitions, the show's hopes of a second season went to die in paradise. Number 5, Daddy Dearest, Fox.
Brought me flowers, Pete. I must be dying.
Dad, you're not dying.
Now, if you were looking for a sitcom with the subtlety of a sledgehammer, Daddy Dearest had you covered. Premiering on Fox on September 5, 1993, this short-lived comedy paired stand-up legend Don Rickles with fellow comic Richard Lewis, a duo about as combustible as baking soda and vinegar. The setup was that Lewis played a freshly divorced son who moves back in with his recently widowed sharp-tongued father. Basically, it was the sitcom equivalent of locking 2 cats in a cardboard box and shaking it a little bit. Rickles brought his trademark rapid-fire insults while Lewis perfected the art of the exasperated eye roll, something he's been doing since the Paleolithic era of stand-up.
On my stationary bike, I have a rear-view mirror, which I'm not thrilled about.
Despite the undeniable chemistry, the show's constant bickering and barrage of zingers weren't quite enough to keep audiences coming back. Daddy Dearest struggled to stand out in a 90s sitcom landscape dominated by juggernauts like Frasier, which debuted the same month, and Home Improvement, which was already a Nielsen powerhouse. Critics noted that while the Rickles-Lewis pairing had potential, the show relied too heavily on Rickles' insult shtick without the warmth or character development seen in more successful sitcoms. After just 10 episodes, the show got booed off the stage like they were on amateur night at the Apollo. The final episode aired in December of 1993, but hey, if nothing else, it gave Rickles and Lewis an excuse to get paid for what they were already doing for free at every Friars Club roast. Y'all still with us? Well, then you're clearly one of us. Hit that like button if you've ever watched a show just for the cast and regretted it by the second commercial break. And let us know in the comments, what's the one 90s TV flop you still think deserved better? Your comment might just make it into our next countdown. Okay, now let's get on to number 4, The Building, CBS. If you've ever wondered what it would be like if your nosy neighbors had their own sitcom, you'd get The Building. Created by and starring Bonnie Hunt, this short-lived series was essentially a live-action cartoon set in a Chicago apartment complex, where the dialogue often felt more like a sketch comedy rehearsal than a polished TV script. Hunt played Bonnie Kennedy, a struggling actress fresh off a breakup trying to rebuild her life with the help of her oddball neighbors. What really set The Building apart was its loose improvisational style. Hunt, who is a Second City alum, encouraged the cast to roll with forgotten lines, dropped props, and awkward pauses, turning real-life gaffes into punchlines. It was like watching a live stage show where the actors might crack up at their own jokes, or at least try not to trip over the furniture. And yes, the show did break the fourth wall from time to time, with characters occasionally throwing a glance at the camera or delivering a knowing aside to the audience, acknowledging the chaos that was happening around them. In 1993, this kind of improv-heavy, semi-chaotic comedy felt as out of place on CBS as a stand-up comic at a mime convention. Despite critical praise for Hunt's natural comedic timing, The Building lasted just 5 episodes before CBS pulled the plug. But Hunt didn't stay down for long. She brought most of the cast back for The Bonnie Hunt Show in 1995 and Life with Bonnie in 2002, proving that sometimes the third time's the charm, or at least slightly less disastrous. Number 3. The Sinbad Show, Fox. The Sinbad Show had all the right ingredients for a hit, but never quite found its footing. Premiering on Fox on September 16, 1993, it starred stand-up comedian Sinbad as David Bryan, a carefree video game designer who suddenly becomes a father figure to 2 orphaned kids.
Me from doing what I know is right.
What is all of the yelling about?
I want to be your daddy.
What? Both of us?
Yes, both of you. If it's all right with you two, I want us to be a family.
Now, did you notice a young Ray J, also known as Brandy's brother, playing LJ? This was years before his infamous home video with Kim Kardashian, and if you watched the first 3 episodes, you saw Salma Hayek long before she was dancing with vampires in From Dusk Till Dawn, or earning an Oscar nomination for Frida.
What are these children doing here?
These are my children, and they live here now.
What do you mean they live here now, David? You know Mama says no children.
In fact, Hayek's meteoric rise might be the most successful thing to come out of the show's brief run. Despite Sinbad's undeniable charisma and a genuinely heartwarming premise, the show struggled to find an audience, getting lost in the shuffle of Fox's rapidly expanding 90s lineup. After just 1 season and 24 episodes, the network pulled the plug and Sinbad returned to stand-up and HBO specials. Number 2, TriBeCa, Fox. TriBeCa was one of those shows that critics loved but audiences ignored. Produced by TriBeCa Productions, which is Robert De Niro's production company, this gritty anthology series premiered on Fox on March 23, 1993. While Law & Order was cementing its place in New York-based TV drama history, TriBeCa was trying to bring indie film vibes to the small screen about 15 years before that became the cool thing to do. The show was set in the titular Lower Manhattan neighborhood, with each episode telling a different story about the area's diverse residents. The main cast included Philip Bosco as a world-weary cafe owner and Joe Morton, long before he struck fear into the hearts of gladiators as Olivia Pope's ruthless father on Scandal.
I am the hell and the high water.
The real star power came from the guest roster, including Laurence Fishburne, who won an Emmy for his role in the pilot episode. Despite the critical acclaim and A-list cameos, TriBeCa never found its audience and got yanked after just 7 episodes, with the final episode airing on May 4th, 1993. The New York Times praised the show as intelligent and stylish, but viewers apparently preferred their New York City-based shows with more law and order and less what was that even about. Even with De Niro's name on the producer credits, the show became one of the biggest prestige flops of 1993, a harbinger of the too good for network TV shows that would populate streaming services decades later. Number 1. The Adventures of Brisco County Jr., Fox. Finally, we come to The Adventures of Brisco County Jr., a show that asked the bold question, what if Indiana Jones traded his fedora for a Stetson and his whip for a six-shooter? The answer was a wild mix of Western, sci-fi, and tongue-in-cheek action that could have only worked with Bruce Campbell in the lead. Premiering on Fox in August of 1993, this was the most expensive pilot Fox had ever produced at the time, with a reported budget of $1.5 million, approximately half of which went to Campbell's chin prosthetic. Now, I'm kidding, but that chin should have its own credit in the show. Campbell played Brisco County Jr., a Harvard-educated lawyer turned bounty hunter chasing down outlaws in the Old West. But this wasn't your typical gunslinger drama. Brisco's world was full of sci-fi gadgets, steampunk inventions, and a glowing mysterious orb that felt like it was stolen from a Doctor Who prop closet. His sidekicks included the gruff but lovable Lord Bowler, played by Julius Carry, and Socrates Poole, a fussy lawyer played by Christian Clemenson. John Astin rounded out the cast as Professor Wickwire, a mad scientist who provided Brisco with anachronistic tech like steam-powered motorcycles and bulletproof vests made of whatever the prop department found behind the craft services table. Despite a decent-sized fanbase and strong early ratings, Brisco County Jr. couldn't lasso enough viewers to stay on the air. It was scheduled on Friday nights at 8 p.m., what Fox executives later admitted was a death slot for the show aimed at adults. Fox canceled it after one season and 27 episodes, choosing to keep its shiny new hit The X-Files instead. Ironically, Brisco's theme music would later go on to greater fame than the show itself, being used by NBC for years in their Olympics coverage. Today, the show lives on as a beloved oddity for Campbell fans and a reminder that sometimes the weirdest ideas make for the best cult classics, just not the best ratings. And there you have it, 10 forgotten TV shows from 1993 that came and went faster than you can say must-see TV. Which of these forgotten gems do you actually remember watching? Let us know in the comment section below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and stay tuned for our next video. Until then, this is Remember When, reminding you that sometimes TV's biggest failures make for the best stories.